Comic Boom.
Hey guys, Comic Boom here to review Batman issue 89. This is the big issue that speculators are obviously talking about regarding Punchline, but the real news in here from a storytelling point of view is supposed to be the first appearance of the designer. We finally got a look at the designer, and wow, does he look ridiculous. But you know what? I want to give James Tynion IV some credit here for telling a pretty decent story. I'm actually intrigued. I did review issue 86, the first issue. I didn't review issues 87 and 88 just because I haven't had time. But I want to give a shout out to my buddy Dark Knight Nation. He's done a phenomenal job reviewing issues 86 through 89. He's done a really good job. And so I would encourage you to go check out Dark Knight Nation's channel. I'll leave a link below. He's done a good job sort of dissecting it in terms of structure and storytelling wise. He does a good analytical breakdown of what James Tynion IV has done. And he's really told what is a really good story here. There are some shortcomings and I'll get to it. But for the most part, I'm really happy with what James Tynion IV has done. And he's stumbled upon, it's interesting because I heard James Tynion IV has indicated in a number of sites and interviews that he wasn't expecting the huge reaction to Punchline. He wasn't expecting that in the speculator market and all the hype being on Punchline. And in fact, Punchline, he is not going to, it looks like Punchline may not become more prominent in the story. She only makes a brief appearance here she's holding binoculars and she's spying on Harley at Catwoman in this issue. And then there's another ending scene where she's on the phone talking to the Joker. And beyond that, we're probably not going to see Punchline. We're only going to see bits and pieces of her going into, maybe not until issue 91 or 92, I think. But in any event, story-wise, this is, I like where this is going. I like the way that James Tynion IV has incorporated all the billionaires, the donors of Metropolis. Bruce Wayne is trying to woo them. He's using Catwoman to woo them. He wants to use his resources to try to design a better Gotham, so that Gotham is just frankly a better place, so it's not completely defined by breathing in Joker toxins and constantly being bombarded with the next latest crazy villain. Because whenever there's a crazy villain introduced into the DC universe, it always seems to originate in Gotham. And I suppose Punchline is no different. Now, I love the fact that this designer character, apparently many years ago, made a deal with all the Batman's rogues gallery that at some future point he would be appearing and that he would be calling in some favors or some markers, it looks like. And that's what he's done. The story seems to suggest that at some point many years ago, the deal that the designer made with the rogues, that the rogues all got together, and that includes Catwoman, and they took the designer out, but it looks like now the designer's back, and the Penguin is, of course, really afraid of him. The Riddler seems to be afraid of the designer in this series, but the Riddler sort of pulls Batman into his lair and leaves some clues that Batman figures out, and I really like the way that James Tynion IV wrote how Riddler intentionally left Batman clues, which of course the Riddler always does that, but this time these were clues that Riddler left that the Riddler knew that likely only Batman could figure them out because they're fairly complicated, or at least they're complicated to me. He left a Sphinx symbol on a screen, and then Batman figured out that the Sphinx symbol relates to the Sphinx riddle, and the answer to the Sphinx riddle is man, and the prefix alphabetic code of man is 626, and he typed in that code into the computer, and lo and behold, popped up an image of the designer, who is somebody who clearly the Riddler is afraid of, along with many other members of the Rogues Gallery, except, of course, you could safely say the Joker's not afraid of the designer. The Joker likely is going to play a role in the upcoming Joker War, so you know Joker doesn't like being upstaged. But in the meantime, the Riddler is clearly afraid of the designer, it would appear, and he doesn't he shows Batman a video feed of him talking to the designer, but doesn't let him hear what they're saying. So that's very interesting. Why does the Riddler just want Batman to see who the designer is and what he looks like, but not necessarily know what it is they're saying? So secrets are afoot here. Meanwhile, Catwoman and Harley take out Cheshire, the assassins Cheshire and Merlin. And if this is where we get into one fault of Tynion IV, and this is something that Dark Knight Nation and I sort of talked about. There's a lot of potentially great fight scenes. In the earlier issues, there was a fight scene that we never saw between Deathstroke and Batman. Batman 1, we saw the after effects of Batman being all beaten up, but we never actually saw the fight. Here, we're teased a great fight between Harley Quinn, Catwoman versus Merlin in Cheshire, and we never actually see that fight. We're not actually privy to how it was that Catwoman and Harley defeat Cheshire and Merlin. In fact, I think Catwoman and Cheshire, I think Cheshire is on par with Catwoman in terms of fighting skills. Plus, she's got an edge because she's got all the poisons and toxins. I don't see Cheshire being taken out by Catwoman, to be honest with you. But you guys could disagree with me on that. At least, particularly Harley Quinn. I see Harley Quinn maybe taking out Merlin, but I don't see Harley Quinn taking out Cheshire. But I guess they make a pretty good team. I should say in defense that Catwoman and Harley they're 2 out of the 3 Gotham City Sirens, and so they're probably accustomed to fighting alongside each other in the past, whereas Merlin and Cheshire are generally loners, and so they probably don't work very well together. So even though the fight scene between the two wasn't shown, we could probably guess that's ultimately it was the teamwork of Harley and Catwoman that defeated Cheshire and Merlin. But guess what? We're not shown that, and we could probably complain about that. Now, I know there's a couple things that my buddy Dark Knight mentioned. There are a lot of scenes in here that he felt were maybe too expository, that were unnecessary. I actually thought that overall, I thought it worked for me. I like that James Tynion IV, I don't mind him sacrificing the odd fight scene here and there to tell a story, because I feel that this story's got substance. I feel it's going somewhere, and I do encourage everybody to pick it up. But opinions will vary, so let me know what your opinion is in the comments below. I now want to talk about this character called the Designer. Now, the Designer, I got to tell you straight up, when the Riddler when the Riddler creates the riddle that Batman figures out and he sees the Designer looks absolutely ridiculous. He looks absolutely ridiculous. Now, I mean, just looking, I'm trying to think, I'm going to put the image up on the screen. You guys see the Designer there. I'm trying to describe, how would you describe this wardrobe to somebody? Seriously. I mean, if I didn't know better, I would think that this was a random guy walking down a back alley in Gotham and gets mugged by a bunch of bums. And not only did they decide to mug him and steal all his crap, but they decided to play a trick on him and dress him in every bit of clothing and garbage they could find. And he wakes up and looks in the mirror and he says to himself, I like it. I mean, it's ridiculous. How many layers of clothing is the Designer wearing here? He's got a tie. He's got a bunch of medals from different countries. He's got a D for. I mean, I would think the D stood for dick, because he looks like a dick. He looks like a moron. I mean, and what's the long spherical thing between the legs? It's like, I don't know, and military pants. And then he's got the boots. I don't get it. And then the flamboyant sort of winter jacket thing on the back with a cape. And then he's got a sort of strap on the shoulder. This guy, what is he? I mean, if this is about presentation, I mean, why isn't there a scene in here where Batman is laughing and says, seriously? I mean, I know that the Batman's used to dealing with some crazy people, but good Lord, the Designer looks ridiculous. Now, I also want to say a bit about Punchline here, because we don't see a lot of Punchline here, but I'm gonna put up some teaser images of Punchline. One that was drawn by Artgerm. Artgerm actually tweeted out, and he wanted to know, because he does some of the future images of Punchline, and he asked people's opinion what they thought of Punchline. I actually think the design for Punchline is not very nice either. I'm not a big fan of Punchline. I think her hair I don't like the hairstyle. I think it looks kind of stupid. I think the whole, it's like she's wearing purple nylon skin tight spandex and then wears clothes on top of that. I think she looks kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you. I mean, I guess we'll see how how she's going to evolve as a character, but I don't, myself, I mean, she's got the dark lipstick and she's got like the red little button nose. I mean, she's clearly Joker's right-hand woman now. And I guess James Tynion IV has said specifically about Punchline that she's the opposite of the Joker. He said specifically that if Harley was the angel on Joker's shoulder, that Punchline would be the devil on the other side. And I think that's a good idea, and I think that's interesting. Although it is worth mentioning that Harley, at least at one time, Harley had a much darker side to her as well, but she had a sweetness about her. The question about Punchline is what are going to be Punchline's predominant features. Punchline made a comment when she was looking through her binoculars in this issue and staring at Harley help Catwoman take out some henchmen in the graveyard that, she basically says, well, she doesn't look like much. And she was making a comment about Harley, clearly, that, it doesn't look like much. And you got to wonder that, that probably Joker has Harley on the mind what are the origins of Punchline? Now that we know that, I think that's going to be in issue 94, the origins of Punchline, but it's going to be interesting to see what caused Joker to have another female henchman, or to let somebody get close enough to him, as close as Harley at one time did. Because Joker is someone who, let's face it, Joker's henchmen don't last very long, and Joker is a control freak, and Joker, of course, inflicted a lot of psychological, emotional abuse on Harley, although I would argue that Harley, a lot of her emotional abuse, I think, was self-inflicted. I think Harley was born a little loopy, notwithstanding the fact that she went through a so-called sane stint as Dr. Harleen Quinn. I've always thought that Harleen was a little bit on the crazy side to begin with, and that Joker just sort of unleashed that. And I don't blame the Joker for that. And I always sort of take issue with people. Well, I don't want to cause a controversy with this next comment, but with men or women, if you're crazy and you're psychotic, maybe stop blaming others for your psychosis. Maybe take some responsibility for the fact that you're just a crazy person, right? But in any event, it's going to be interesting to see what Punchline's origins are. What are her motivations? What attracted her to the Joker? Was she in love with the Joker? We know Harley fell in love with the Joker. Why is Punchline with the Joker? Is she in love with him too? These are the questions that I have, and I think the answers to those questions are going to be quite interesting as we move along. And it's great to see Batman get some much-needed love, some Batman hype, in the midst of all that's going on with Didio being fired now and DC in a state of flux, moving into 5G. It's great to see I'd like to see James Tynion IV getting some love here for the creation of Punchline, even if you didn't expect it. This is a great issue to get. There's the first there's multiple first full appearances here on some assassins, Mr. Teeth, and there's the Gunsmith, and of course Punchline, and we've got the first full appearance of the designer, or at least seeing his terrible fashion sense. All in all, things are picking up for Batman. I'm enjoying it. Guys, tell me what you think. Hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. And until next time, Comic Boom out.